Ray says, what does substance mean in a relationship? He said we lacked substance. We did things together, went places. Guess it doesn't matter now if we're not together, but just curious what he meant. Well, here's what I would say is that when a guy says like we lacked substance, what he's probably really, because when men and women break up with each other, we don't usually actually say what the problem is, right? What we say is all the things that came up for us when when we no longer feel it anymore, right? So if you stop feeling it for a guy and the guy's like, hey, you go to him and you break up with him and you're like, hey, I just, we don't have anything in common and there's no substance here and there's this and there's that and there's all these different things, right? Usually those aren't really what the problems are. Usually those are just things that you bring up after the fact because you start getting annoyed with him and you're like, oh, there's no substance and this and that, right? And usually what the real problem is a lack of chemistry or a lack of trust or a lack of something that kind of breaks things up and makes that person feel like this isn't worth it anymore, right? They start feeling more pain from being around you than they do pleasure. And so they look outside and they see more pleasure from either being single or being with somebody else. And so they move towards that. And so I wouldn't get overly caught up in the substance thing. What it actually means, if you're curious about what it actually means, is it means depth, right? What he's saying is that there wasn't a whole lot of depth there, right? Like there wasn't a whole lot of things that you have in a deep way. Like there's no deep connection there, which may or may not be true, right? Like I said, people just come up with things. If you meet somebody and you're like really into them and you're like, oh, they have all these things that are like different than me and there's I don't know, I don't have to worry about this and we can do that or whatever, right? And you take all the things that a lot of times somebody would see as being a negative and you turn them into a positive, right? Because you have that love drunk going on, right? And so you're just all into this person. But if you like lose that, all of a sudden, all those things that you liked about that person all of a sudden become problems. It's not like, oh, all these things that we have different. It's like, oh, all these things that we have different in each other. And that's what ends up happening. That's what you do when you when you lose interest in another person. So Ray, there's probably a bigger problem going on there than actual substance. Um, so you'd probably want to look at that instead.